Ever wonder how terrifying it can get when an ex simply refuses to accept a breakup? I thought leaving my fiancé would free me, but instead I found myself hiding in a friend's guest room, clutching a kitchen knife at night, haunted by his obsessive threats, twisted gifts, and a chilling belief that I would belong to him forever. Ever wonder what an ex might do when they simply refuse to accept a breakup? For 4 days now, I've been concealed in my friend Janet's guest room, my body tensing with every sound from the corridor. The window coverings remain shut day and night, and a kitchen blade rests beneath my sleeping pillow. This existence was never meant for me. It all began 3 months prior, when I ended my engagement to Owen. Our relationship spanned nearly 5 years. The initial 3 were quite pleasant. However, a shift occurred when he proposed. It was as if placing that ring on my finger convinced him he owned me. The possessive conduct started subtly. Questions about my messages, constant location checks, irritation if I didn't answer his calls immediately. Then came the accusations, the surveillance of my online activity, unannounced visits to my workplace. I attempted to discuss it, but he'd always twist the narrative until I found myself apologizing to him. A classic manipulation tactic, I now realize. What I hadn't mentioned earlier was his habit of checking my phone while I slept. I once found him sifting through my texts at 3 a.m., his expression intensely fixed. When I challenged him, he claimed he was just ensuring I wasn't concealing anything, saying his love for me was too strong to risk losing me. I accepted his words then. How incredibly naive I was. When I finally ended things, his reaction was surprisingly composed. That should have been my initial red flag. Owen never handled anything calmly. He simply nodded, stated his understanding, and departed without argument. I recall feeling relieved, imagining perhaps this wouldn't be as tumultuous as I'd anticipated. For a fortnight, absolute quiet. No calls, no messages, no appearance in my apartment. I began to relax, even enjoyed a casual coffee outing with a colleague from my office. That's when the messages commenced. Initially, just brief check-ins, asking about my well-being. Then, shared photographs of us with captions like, "Recall our happiness?" Following those were screenshots of my coworker's social media profile, marked with question marks. Then the phone calls began, dozens daily, ending as soon as I picked up. He left voicemails too. First sorrowful, then enraged, then an unsettling calm. "You'll eventually return to me," he uttered in the last one before I blocked him. "We are meant to be together." I've never been more certain. I blocked his number, all his social media profiles. He began sending emails from new addresses. I blocked those too. He left notes on my vehicle. I informed my apartment manager, who assured me they'd monitor things. I believed I was managing the situation. Last Friday, I returned home from work early, due to a severe headache. I unlocked my door, stepped inside, and immediately sensed something amiss. I nearly turned and left, but told myself I was being overly cautious. My bedroom door was shut, which was peculiar as I always left it open for airflow. As I nudged it open, my heart literally seized. Hanging on the wall above my bed was my wedding dress, the one I'd returned to the boutique months ago. He had somehow retrieved it and had affixed it to my wall. Not hung it, but nailed it with actual framing fasteners driven through the delicate fabric, piercing the wall beneath. The gown was splayed out like a figure crucified, its sleeves extended. He'd ripped the bodice open down the middle, making it appear ruined. But that wasn't even the most unsettling detail. The worst was what he'd done to my bed. Carved into the wooden headboard in jagged, furious lettering, "You belong to me forever and always." Across my sheets were what initially appeared to be rose petals, but as I drew nearer, I realized they were black. Dyed or burned, I couldn't discern. They left dark smudges on my white comforter, resembling bruises. Some were arranged to form a heart around my pillow. And what I believed was our old engagement photograph on my nightstand wasn't a picture at all. It was a digitally altered image of my face on a deceased body. I was immobilized, unable to move, unable to breathe. That's when I felt his presence behind me. I hadn't even heard him emerge from my closet. His hands were around my throat before I could utter a sound, squeezing so tightly that dark specks danced before my eyes. He shoved me onto the bed, on top of those petals, still constricting my breathing. "If I cannot have you, no one will," he hissed, his saliva striking my face. "You imagine you can simply discard 5 years? You think you can just leave me? I will always find you." I was on the verge of unconsciousness when my neighbor's dog began barking hysterically in the hallway. Owen's grip slackened just enough for me to free one hand. I carry a can of pepper spray in my pocket ever since the harassment began. I managed to seize it and discharge it directly into his eyes. He shrieked, released my throat, and staggered backward, hands covering his face. "I swear to God, I'll absolutely end you," he screamed. "You're dead. Do you hear me? Dead." I fled. Grabbed nothing. Just ran from the apartment, down the stairs rather than waiting for the elevator. drove straight to Janet's residence, shaking so violently I nearly crashed twice. I contacted the authorities from her phone. The officers took my statement, photographed the bruises forming on my neck. They proceeded to my apartment, but Owen was gone. The wedding dress remained, the defaced headboard, the morbid photo. They documented everything. They informed me they'd request an emergency restraining order, but we both know those are merely documents. They're still searching for him. His car was discovered abandoned near the bus terminal, but security footage showed he never entered. His parents claim they haven't seen him. His friends state the same. No one knows his whereabouts. I jump every time my phone vibrates. Janet had to purchase clothes and toiletries for me because I'm too afraid to return to my apartment. I've been wearing the same borrowed sleepwear for days now. Update: 2 weeks have passed since my last post. My gratitude to everyone who offered support and counsel. Some of you were correct about things I preferred not to hear. I eventually departed Janet's apartment after nearly a week there. She was incredible, but I could tell her boyfriend was becoming annoyed by my constant presence, my jumping at every sound, and my monopolizing their guest room. Furthermore, Janet works remotely and having to whisper all her client calls because I was experiencing panic attacks in the adjacent room was unsustainable. I owe her considerably. The police still haven't located Owen. His credit cards haven't been used. His phone is inactive and none of his family or friends have heard from him. Or so they assert. The detective assigned to my case, a woman named Hilda, who appears perpetually worn out, informed me they've been observing his parents' house and his best friend Brody's apartment, but nothing. It's as if he vanished. My parents drove down from Indiana as soon as I finally confided in them. My father wanted to eliminate Owen when he saw the pictures of my neck bruises, which had by then turned a sickly, yellowish purple. My mother just continued crying and questioning why I hadn't disclosed the controlling behavior sooner. Honestly, because I was ashamed, because I felt foolish for not recognizing the warning signs earlier. Because a part of me still blamed myself for causing Owen to react that way. My parents insisted I could no longer stay at my apartment, which, obviously, I wasn't planning to. I had nightmares about that carved headboard for days. They wanted me to return to Indiana with them, but that would mean abandoning my job and essentially my entire life here. I've invested too much effort building my career to allow Owen to seize that from me, too. So, we reached a compromise. They assisted me in finding a new apartment in a secure building across town. Key fob entry, security cameras, all the precautions. They paid the security deposit and first month's rent, even though I protested. Dad said it was the only way he could sleep soundly. We didn't list my name on the mailbox. On paper, I'm technically subletting from the previous tenant, so my name isn't linked to the address in any public records. Moving was a complete ordeal in itself. The police had finally released my apartment as a crime scene, but I couldn't bring myself to return there alone. Janet accompanied me, along with her brother, who is built like a football player, just in case. We brought refuse bags for anything I wished to keep, but honestly, I abandoned almost everything. The furnishings, the decor, most of my clothing. It all felt contaminated somehow, tainted, as if Owen had touched everything and left an unseen poison behind. I did retrieve practical items, important documents, my laptop, some garments, a few cherished possessions. But when Janet inquired if I wanted the framed photographs from the living room, I simply shook my head. He was in so many of them, smiling that smile I once adored. Now all I could see was his face contorted with fury as he choked me. The wedding dress was gone, taken as evidence, but they left the headboard. Who does that? Just leaves the carved threat there. Janet's brother had to unscrew it from the bed frame, so we could remove it. We took it to an empty plot and literally set it ablaze. Watching those words burn was the first moment I felt anything akin to relief since this entire ordeal began. My new dwelling is sparse but secure. I've been sleeping on an air mattress because I can't bring myself to purchase a proper bed yet. My parents offered to extend their stay, but I told them I needed to start figuring out how to live normally again. That was a falsehood. Nothing feels normal. I shower with the bathroom door ajar, so I can see if anyone enters. I check under my bed every night. The worst part is the anticipation. Waiting for Owen to be discovered. Waiting to feel safe again. Waiting for the inevitable to occur because deep down I know he's not finished with me. Then I was at the grocery store. The first time I'd gone alone since everything transpired. I sensed it. That prickling sensation on the back of my neck. Someone observing me. I rotated slowly. My heart thumping so hard, I thought I might faint. Nothing. No one. Just a mother with a toddler examining granola bars. I assure myself I was being paranoid, that therapy was supposed to aid with this exact issue. I turned back to retrieve a box of Cheerios and nearly shrieked. There was a small gift bag sitting in my cart, vivid red with white tissue paper protruding from the top. It wasn't there when I entered the aisle. I absolutely swear it wasn't. I recoiled from the cart, colliding with the display and knocking boxes everywhere. The mother with the toddler gazed at me as if I were deranged. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. I abandoned my cart and fled the store to my car, checking behind me the entire way. Once inside with the door secured, I contacted Detective Hilda. She dispatched an officer to the store who reviewed the security footage. The cameras didn't cover the precise spot where I was standing. Of course, they didn't. The officer did retrieve the bag, however. Inside was a jewelry box, and within that was my engagement ring, the one I'd returned to Owen months ago. Wrapped around it was a small note that simply stated, "Soon." The police are treating it seriously. But what can they truly accomplish? They still can't locate him. They've increased patrols around my new building, but we all know that's just a show of security. If Owen found me at a random grocery store, he knows where I reside. I haven't left my apartment since. I've had food delivered, but instructed them to leave it at the lobby desk. I keep the curtains drawn, lights off. I'm typing this from my closet because it's the only place I feel even remotely secure right now. The detective called this morning. They discovered something new during another sweep of Owen's house. A journal, pages and pages of meticulous schemes, various scenarios for reclaiming me, as he phrased it. Contingency plans if I resisted. Some of the pages bore dried bloodstains. They're testing to determine if it's human blood. The detective wouldn't disclose every detail within it. She said it would only distress me further, but her tone shifted when she discussed it, as if she was unsettled. And this woman deals with truly horrific situations every day. I can't sleep. Can't eat. One entry in the journal they did share with me. Owen wrote that if he couldn't have me in this life, he'd take me to the next one. Detective Hilda says they're now classifying this as a credible threat of murder-suicide. I don't know what to do. I can't live like this, startled by shadows, awaiting his reappearance. But I also can't let him prevail by utterly destroying my existence. I refuse to become another statistic. Another woman killed by a man who believed he owned her. Last update. It's been nearly a month since my previous post. I don't even know where to commence. My hands are trembling as I type this, but I need to express it all. Partially for myself. Partially because so many of you have checked in and deserve to know what occurred. And partially because perhaps this will assist someone else in recognizing the precursors before situations escalate this far. After discovering that gift bag in my shopping cart, I essentially became confined to my own apartment. I worked remotely, had all groceries and essentials delivered, and only left for absolute necessities, always accompanied by someone. Detective Hilda called with updates every few days, but it was always the same. No trace of Owen, no new leads. They were monitoring his bank accounts, social media, family members' homes, but nothing. It was as though he had become a specter, one that was haunting only me. Then came the floral delivery to my workplace. Not my apartment, my actual office building. Red roses with a card that stated, "Missing you more each day." I hadn't even been to the office in weeks, and I certainly hadn't provided anyone there with my new home address. My boss contacted me about them, and I nearly vomited when she described them. How on earth did he know where I worked? I called the detective immediately. She sent someone to review the security footage from my office building, but the delivery was made by a regular florist employee who had no knowledge of who had placed the order. It had been settled with a prepaid credit card acquired with cash at a convenience store 2 towns away. The breaking point arrived a week later. I was video chatting with my mother when my phone chimed with an email notification. It originated from an unfamiliar email address, but the subject line caused my blood to freeze. Our wedding photos. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a sequence of digitally altered images. My face edited onto wedding photographs with Owen. Me in a wedding gown standing beside him at an altar. Us slicing cake together, dancing. But my eyes were shut in every single picture, as if I were lifeless. It was the most disturbing sight I've ever encountered. The final image wasn't photoshopped. It was a picture of me asleep on my air mattress, captured through my bedroom window. From that morning, he knew where I lived. I completely unraveled. A full-blown panic attack. My mother heard my screams through the still-open video chat and contacted emergency services from Indiana. I was hyperventilating so severely, I couldn't even articulate what was happening when the police arrived. I just thrust my phone at them. They conducted a sweep of the building and surrounding vicinity, but found nothing. The detective arrived an hour later with news. They had traced the email to a public library computer about 20 minutes away. They were now reviewing security footage. I couldn't remain there any longer. Not for another minute. I tossed some essentials into a bag and went to a hotel under a fictitious name. Paid in cash. Informed no one of my location except Detective Hilda. Not even Janet or my parents. I was terrified that Owen might be somehow monitoring their communication. 3 days into my hotel stay, Detective Hilda called with the news I had been both dreading and anticipating. They had identified Owen on the library security footage. He looked different. He'd shaved his head and grown a beard, but it was undeniably him. They now possessed proof he was still in the area and actively pursuing me. They issued a formal arrest warrant and assured me they would find him soon. That night, I woke around 2 a.m. to a soft scratching sound at my hotel room door. Not knocking, not someone attempting the handle, just scratching like fingernails on wood. I froze, not even inhaling, straining to hear. The scratching ceased, then recommenced, more insistent this time. I silently reached for my phone and messaged Hilda, who had given me her personal number for emergencies. Then I seized the lamp from the bedside table, the heaviest item within reach, and stood pressed against the wall next to the door, my heart hammering so loudly I was certain whoever was outside could hear it. The scratching stopped again. Then came a whisper, so faint I almost believed I imagined it. "I know you're in there, babe. Just want to talk." Owen's voice. I clamped my hand over my mouth to prevent any sound. Tears streamed down my face. The handle slowly turned, but the deadbolt held fast. Then came a louder sound. Not scratching anymore, but something metallic against the lock. He was attempting to pick it or force it open. "Don't make this more difficult than necessary," he whispered. "We belong together. You know that. All this fleeing is just postponing the inevitable." My phone vibrated. A message from Hilda stating police were en route. Stay quiet and do not engage. Easy for her to say, when she wasn't confined in a room with a maniac trying to gain entry. Suddenly, he started shouting, demanding I open the door. All pretense of calm vanished. He began pounding, screaming that he knew I was inside, that I couldn't conceal myself, that he would always locate me. I was shaking so intensely I could barely stand. Clutching a lamp, prepared to swing it if he breached the door. It felt like hours, but was probably only minutes before I heard it. Sirens in the distance drawing nearer. Owen heard them, too. The pounding ceased, then footsteps running away down the hall. I remained frozen until I heard multiple sets of footsteps approaching. Then Detective Hilda's voice calling my name. Only then did I release the lamp and slide down the wall to the floor, completely numb. They missed him by mere minutes. Security cameras showed him running down the emergency stairs and exiting through a side door just as the first police vehicle pulled into the parking lot. But now they had new footage, confirmation he was still in town, and evidence of him attempting to force entry into my room. The search intensified. The detective insisted I couldn't stay at the hotel. It wasn't safe now that Owen knew my location. She suggested a safe house, but I proposed using myself as bait. He was going to keep finding me wherever I went, so we might as well dictate where and when. Hilda was hesitant initially, but after consulting with her superiors, they agreed it might be the only method to apprehend him swiftly before he escalated further. They orchestrated a sting operation using my apartment. I would appear to return home, making it seem as though I believed it was safe again. In reality, plainclothes officers would be stationed inside and around the building, waiting. It took 3 days. 3 days of me performing the routines of a normal life, walking to a nearby coffee shop each morning, stopping at the corner store, making it appear I was settling back into a routine, all while wearing a concealed panic button and knowing officers were observing my every movement. On the 4th day, it happened. I was alone in the apartment, except for 2 officers hidden in the spare bedroom and bathroom and more stationed throughout the building. I was sitting on the couch watching Netflix, attempting to appear relaxed, despite feeling as though I might vomit from anxiety. The first indication was so subtle I almost missed it. The doorknob slowly turning, testing if it was locked. It was, but that wouldn't deter him for long. I pressed the panic button clipped to my waistband, alerting the officers that he was present. I heard a key in the lock. A key. He must have made a duplicate when we were together, and kept it all this time. The door swung open and there he was. I barely recognized him. The shaved head and beard altered his appearance. He was carrying a duffel bag in one hand. I did not wish to know its contents. He greeted me, asking if I had missed him. Every rehearsed line I'd practiced vanished from my mind. He stepped inside, closing the door behind him, his gaze fixed on me. He began speaking about how challenging I'd been to pinpoint. He claimed he always knew I'd eventually return here, calling us creatures of habit. I finally managed to inquire what he desired. He laughed, but there was no amusement in it. He continued about wanting what was his, wanting his life back. The life I destroyed when I chose to discard 5 years, as if they meant nothing. He took a step closer. I resisted the urge to retreat. He continued in that eerily calm voice, stating he realized while watching me these past weeks that I wouldn't return willingly. I was too stubborn, too proud, so he had to modify his plans. He reached for the duffel bag, and my heart nearly stopped. Where were the police? Why weren't they bursting in? He unzipped the bag and began talking about us leaving together, going somewhere new, starting fresh, and if I wouldn't be his wife in this life. He produced a firearm, and I felt the room tilt sideways. He said we'd be together in the next one. Just as he raised the weapon, the bathroom door burst open. An officer shouted for him to drop the gun, his own weapon drawn. Owen's face twisted with rage. He spun toward me, firearm still in hand, screaming that I'd betrayed him, calling me despicable names. Everything transpired so quickly. Owen lunging toward me. Multiple officers shouting. The deafening sound of gunshots. I dropped to the floor, covering my head. When I looked up, Owen was on the ground. He'd been struck in the shoulder and leg. Not fatal, but sufficient to incapacitate him. As they helped him up, he spat that he'd find me again. That he always finds what belongs to him. Those were the last words I heard him utter before they took him away. The aftermath has been intricate. Owen was charged with attempted murder, stalking, breaking and entering, and a multitude of other offenses. He's being held without bail, awaiting trial. The evidence against him is overwhelming. The journal, the photographs, the emails, the security footage, the weapon. He's facing decades in prison. I should feel relieved. I should feel secure, but I don't. Not entirely. I keep experiencing nightmares about him escaping, finding me once more. My therapist says that's normal, that trauma doesn't simply vanish because the threat is gone. I relocated again, to a different city this time, began a new occupation, legally changed my identity, deleted all my social media, severed ties with anyone who knew both Owen and me. It feels drastic but essential. The prosecutor warned me that Owen had been writing letters from jail, not directly to me, which would violate the restraining order, but to his parents and friends, letters that speak of when he gets out and completing what he started. I'm composing this from my new apartment, in my new city, under my new name. I'm no longer concealing myself, merely starting anew. If there's one lesson I've drawn from all of this, it's that you never truly know someone. The man I loved for 5 years, planned to marry, share a life with, he was capable of this level of obsession, this violence, this malevolence. Check in on your friends who have recently exited relationships, especially if their ex seemed unduly calm about the separation. Trust your intuition when someone's conduct feels amiss. Document every detail. And please take threats seriously, even subtle ones. The warning signs I disregarded nearly cost me my life. I don't know what the future holds, but for the first time in months, I believe I possess one.